Okay, so I confused many of you with my main choice. He hates pet classes! How did we end up here? Is he going to be a Night Fae Hunter? No. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and we should have a talk because everybody wants a clear answer. I get it. Everybody would like it if I would just say, these are the best, choose them and you're fine, and it's dead easy and all that. But that's just not how World of Warcraft works, and it's especially not how World of Warcraft works in the Shadowlands. There are a lot of things that come into play when deciding on a main character, and it comes down to, how do you play World of Warcraft? Because we all play this game very differently, and that's how it all gets messy and convoluted, and we can't just have black and white answers. It's all really grey. There's a lot of elements to mix into it which can lead to some confusion. So I saw a lot of people commenting as like, is this hypocritical? Is he memeing us? What is the idea here? So let's start with the main choice. How do I pick a main? And we are producing a kind of flowchart system which should hopefully help many of you who play the game in any different way how you would go about picking a class for World of Warcraft, especially when a new expansion is coming. So stay tuned for that, it is coming. Let's talk about it for me. What is my main goal in World of Warcraft? It's raiding, progress raiding specifically, at the level that suits me. And this is important because often this is seen as elitism. And from what I could tell, elitism at this point is anybody who does something higher than I do. And I don't mean me personally, just you as an individual. When I see people calling out elitists, normal raiders call heroic raiders elitists. Heroic raiders call mythic raiders elitists. And super casual players call everybody elitist. And it just seems to be this amalgamous blob of shit that doesn't make any sense to anybody. The whole purpose here is to figure out what is important to you. Well, for me, it's where my boundaries are drawn. Do you know when you guys think about, oh, I think I should leave this guild now, or preach, do you think I should leave my guild because of X, Y, and Z? And it's because you've started to hit your boundaries, and your boundaries occur way, way earlier than the rest of your raid team. That's usually the big giveaway. What are these boundaries? You've learned everything you have to learn about this fight, and it's done. You can't screw this up anymore. You've done enough wiping, you've done enough learning to know how you function in this fight. And you're now at the point where you're waiting for the rest of the team to get up to that level. Now, luckily, if you are in a good position, you're waiting for one or two players who are just a little bit behind, and then they hit that thing, they hit their boundary, and everybody's good, and then the boss dies. And that's pretty cool. But what you'll often find is that as you go further down the ladder, if you start to get better as a player, you start hitting that boundary way quicker than everybody else. This was the position I was in during the Burning Crusade. I was so comfortable, like crazy comfortable in my guild. I could do no wrong in their eyes, and they would praise me for it. And it was a real over-the-top ego inflation, which led to me being a bit of a cunt, and I don't envy the person I was back then either, because I very quickly discovered that I was only comfortable. I was a big fish in a small pond, and that's the reality that a lot of people run into. As they get better at the game, they start looking around, and you start thinking these awful things like, if I played everybody's character, we would have killed this boss right now. You know, really fucking egotistical, narcissistic shit that spoils it for everybody. And this doesn't happen at the Mythic level. It happens at the normal level. It happens in Mythic Plus. It happens in Arena. It happens in Heroic level. It happens all over the game because everybody plays at a different stage of the game. That is a real simple fact. So, how do I choose a main? Well, I'm at the level where my boundary needs to be something that's very, very complicated. And again, it comes down to that elitist thing. I can say something like, I could never be a heroic raider in World of Warcraft. And instantly I will be like, people will be like, knives out, stab, 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 you're an absolute arsehole. Look, the simple fact is, heroic just isn't complex enough for me anymore. That's it. There's nothing more to it. Just like normal's not heroic, not difficult enough for some people, just like doing world quests is not difficult for a lot of people, the same thing applies. Heroic raiding generally is just too simple for the level I play at. So I can't go back to that because I'm going to hit my boundary really quickly. And if I'm in a guild, let's say I want to go casual, we hear it all the time, right? I want to go casual, I want to do this, do you think I could do that? And the problem is, your boundary hasn't changed. Unless you physically become a much worse player, your boundary doesn't change. But the environment you are in has a totally different boundary than you're used to. And therefore, you're sat there going, I don't know how people die to this. I don't get it. If you've ever been a raider that's gone into LFR and you see people die to things and you're like, how can you die here? Like, I don't get it. What even kills you? If you've been in that position, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like, I don't understand how you physically are failing this. I don't get it. Because your boundary is just so different. That means I kind of like raiding at the level. What I enjoy the most, and this is the important thing because it spreads into the Covenant system, it spreads into everything, is we all play differently, and trying to get people to see it through everyone's eyes is so hard. My boundary right now needs to be relatively complex. Fights I've struggled with recently, I'll openly tell you, like fights took me a little while to get my head around perfectly. Queen Ashara, N'Zoth not so much, and N'Zoth wasn't that complicated. Il'gynoth positioning was a little tricky to get right. It seems pretty obvious with pulsing circles and all that, but I had to do some maneuvering to get around to certain places at certain specific times, specifically at the end of the fight, so I had to help on one side of the room, but then I had to be in position at the other side of the room with people in between me all the time. That little stuff took me a couple of goes to get right. Right? It took me a little while to get right. These are the fights that I'm thinking about more than just, am I a DPS? Right? These are the things I enjoy. I love this. I enjoy it a lot, which is why I get annoyed when people are like, I want to be a raider, but I don't want to do a guild application because that seems like work. It's like, well, this opens the door to making everything better. Put in the effort. Otherwise, if you see this as a job and not something you want to do, then that's the mentality difference. That's why those guilds have guild application processes. They want people who want to take part in this, are willing to put in the effort of a couple of hours of application. They want that because you should want to do it like it's your hobby, right? A fisherman who loves fishing doesn't get pissed off because he has to go out of his way to get his best rod, right? That's something he wants to do. He enjoys doing it. A mechanic who loves rebuilding cars isn't pissed off that he's got to spend his Sunday building a car. He wants to do it. This is the difference in the mentality that you're all looking for in a guild and finding the right boundaries that meet you as well. So it's complex, right? It's complex. It's a big thing. So when it comes to me choosing a main, do I dislike pet classes? Yes, absolutely. Why? Because of Blizzard. Because more often than not, pets work fine. They're totally fine. But when they go wrong, and they do go wrong, it's a ginormous pain in the ass, and it shouldn't happen. And Carapace would be a recent example of that, with pets just flying in the sky. And that means I have to dismiss them, resummon them, manage them. And this is why when they reintroduce things like Pet Resurrection, having a 6-second timer, and somebody at Blizzard is like, well, we want it to be an interesting thing. It's like, it's because you programmed the game badly in this fight that we have to deal with this. And it's not fun. I didn't send my pet into the jaws of death or anything like that. It's just the fact that he's floating in the goddamn sky. And now you're like, oh, well, you know, it's going to be important that when you resurrect your pet. It's like, do you play the game? And that's where those levels of frustration come from. I have played pet classes in the past. However, I dislike pet classes. So how did we get a Hunter and Unholy Death Knight? Because it's not that easy. It's grey. It's complex. It's difficult. There are different things to consider. One thing I truly missed about raiding was being the volunteer. And you can go back as, I'm not saying this to justify myself, but to make it really clear, this isn't a difference of mindset. It's how I've always thought about WoW and how I've always encouraged you guys to think about. Because as a raider and somebody who's interested in raiding needs several different types of people. It needs those monstrous DPSs. It needs the guys who will like argue to the death to not do a certain function because it screws their damage. You want those guys. Some of you may hate those guys, but you fucking want those guys, especially if they are monsters of damage. But what you also need is the guys who want to do those extra things and can do it well, consistently, and can do it while still performing. You want those guys. Their performance overall will take a hit somewhere, but they're having more fun dealing with these jobs that have to be done. When I was told to go, or asked, I should say, when I was asked to go Druid in Uldia, because I was a mage, in order to help us with Gahoon because of utility, and this is what's also important, is I switched to a Druid because Blizzard made it so we had to get more Druids in. And this is something that's so often overlooked by the people who are commenting on what, and this is why, again, we get frustrated. And you can feel my frustration here because I read this all the time and it's not true, is Blizzard dictates, certainly at the level of the game that I play at, and many of you want to play at and maybe do play at, Blizzard dictates certain things that have to happen. It is nothing to do with what I enjoy or what I think's best, or it doesn't matter. Blizzard dictates it. They dictate you need immunity classes at N'Zoth for the original version. You need them. Doesn't work without them. You need these druids that can bypass this stuff on G'huun. You could do it, sure, you could do it later when the fight is nerfed and they've changed things and they've turned it down for everyone else, but when we hit them, the challenge Blizzard has set for us, they've decided it requires these things. So G'huun was one of those things. We needed somebody who could leap up to Jade Serpent statues dropped by a Mistweaver, another requirement, and then deal with the basketball situation. Okay, so we don't particularly need mages here. You have an alt druid and main alts. This is why my guild requires main alts for exactly this scenario. We need you on your druid next week. Deal, no problem. However, after that, did my druid provide anything that met my needs as somebody who wants to be the volunteer to do the extra jobs, as somebody who wants to do the extra things? Absolutely not. The closest I got was being the suicide guy at N'Zoth because we didn't have enough immunity classes. So we had to kill somebody. So I was like, I'll do it. Because I love that stuff, and I'd forgotten how much I loved that stuff. When I was playing a hunter during the Shadowlands beta, god damn it when I did some raid testing because they were overpowered. The reason I played a hunter in raid testing is because they were broken. And during raid testing, if there's a class that is broken, that is really, really helpful in order to see the entire fight so we can gain more knowledge. Knowledge is power. So I played a hunter, as did several others, and lo and behold, nearly every fight held this be the volunteer style stuff for me. Nearly every single one. And so, that overwhelmed my dislike of pet classes. It's as simple as that. Do I dislike pet classes enough in order to not enjoy this other element? No, I don't. Can any other class provide this same kind of utility and usefulness? No. And I love this stuff. So that's why. With the Unholy DK, it came down to gameplay. I know many people think, global cooldowns, all that kind of stuff. It didn't actually bother me that much. And in fact, the thematic side of it, having all the army out and the gargoyle and all that kind of stuff out with the Unholy DK, that's what really drove me towards it. Is it a pet class? Yes. It is a pet class. It suffers from the problems if I don't manage it correctly, which is on me. But if I manage it correctly, it's not that bad. I can live with it. And the gameplay and the style of the class, I love and adore. So it overwhelms it. I was more concerned with Frost than I was about being a pet class. And it's all about spinning these different plays. Now, it will be different for you. It'll be very different for you because, well, how do you play? Are you somebody, and this is what you should always start with, are you somebody who likes to multi-role? Do you like to be that guy that if the raid's lacking a tank, a healer, a DPS, a ranged DPS, a melee DPS, that you can step into that role? So you're like, I want to be a druid because if I can tank, or I want to be a brewmaster so I can fill like 3 of these roles, do all that kind of stuff. That's the way you would lean towards it. And it's different for everybody depending on how you enjoy World of Warcraft the most. Do you only like to do raw DPS? Then you'll be looking at things like rogues and warlocks because that's your, that's your niche. That's where you want to go. And it branches off like this depending on how you play. Do you enjoy doing mostly solo content? In which case you would look towards demon hunters and things like that that can do that really, really well because that suits you. There's no hypocrisy here. It's all about figuring out the path you want to go on, and sometimes that involves sacrifices, which brings us to covenants. So I recently said, my favorite covenant in terms of practicality and actually playing on a week-by-week basis in the Shadowlands is the Night Fae. And I hate the Night Fae. I hate the voice acting. I hate the environment. It's not that it's not gorgeous and beautiful, but it doesn't do it for me. I can appreciate the beauty. I can. But God, it's not for me. But it is the best. I like their weekly event. I love their storytelling. I like the stuff that comes with it. It's useful. It's good. So people went, you're going to be a Night Fae Hunter? Because most people know Night Fae Hunters are really bad. No. And it comes down to, again, what is my main goal here? It's to be a raider. And to be in a progress raid mindset. Which means I will choose the covenant that's suited for me. And that might be Venthyr for just having more single target damage so we kill bosses quicker. It might be Necrolord, which I really can't stand the Necrolord. Might be that because that's just more practically useful for what I want to play. And I'm okay with that. And one of the reasons I'm okay with that, because some of you might go, well, that sounds shitty. I don't want to be in that environment. The way it works is that the better we progress as a team, because I'm playing the game from a team point of view. Some people play the game as a solo point of view, but I'm playing it as a team point of view. And from my team point of view, if we get us over that hill faster at a rate we all enjoy, where we're hitting our boundaries at the same time, we're ticking all these boxes together as a team, and we're overcoming it, immediately I play a completely different style of game. We're on farm. It means I can bring alts that can be any covenant they want to be. That can be any style they want to be, and I can slip them in here and there. I can also change my covenant at that point should I be that bothered by it, which I probably won't be in terms of it being a progress character. I'm going to make it as good as I can be for that purpose. But the Shadowlands has made it very easy to have alts. So, do I dislike the Night Fae theme and the voice acting enough, right? This would be another example, to stop me choosing it as something that is clearly superior in the main thing I enjoy? Absolutely not. That would be ridiculous in my eyes, and that's how I think about it. For other people, it would be ridiculous to say yes to that. But for me, of course not. I can take any covenant in this fucking game on my main progress character, and if it provides the best in the environment I enjoy the most, that's how it's going to be. And that is Blizzard's decision, by the way. It is not ours. I wish truly it was not that case, but it is the case. Because Blizzard is dictating to us, that's how they want you to play. And this is where it falls down, because a lot of people are like, well, that doesn't sound fun. You're right. That's why we don't find the Covenants particularly fun. Because it's not even the Covenants, really. It's Blizzard's whimsical desire to decide how we should play. Leave me the fuck alone. Give me the tools and let me play the game how I want to play. Like you have done since the start of this game. That's our problem with it. I don't really care about the Covenant abilities that much anymore. I couldn't give a shit. I'm just going to play around it like I've just explained to you. I love alts that'll play around it. I can swap Covenants. I can play around it all day. Many people can't. They don't have the time, the inclination, or the effort, or the being asked enough to do it, like we saw with Essences. But I can play around it. I can deal with it, and I am fine with having those sacrifices on one character in order to do the thing I enjoy the most. I wish I didn't have to do it, but as I've explained to you a couple of times now, it is Blizzard that dictates the terms of what is required. It's not the players. Blizzard dictates the terms of what is required to overcome their challenges that they design. So with that in mind, that's how I justify, I don't really like pet classes, but I love this aspect of it. I don't really like this, but I like this bit. I'm not a fan of that, but that makes it much better in this environment. And that's how it works, guys. So that's how I arrived at my choices. No hypocrisy, nothing like that. Just a steady stream of weighing up all my different avenues. Like a Shadow Priest. Why didn't you play Shadow Priest, Mike? You love it so much. I do. But can I see myself as a main alt? My Shadow Priest was a main alt. Am I going to swap out my Hunter from what I've seen in order to play a Shadow Priest? Considering I'll have to put an equal amount of time into a Shadow Priest to have it ready should the thing at Gahuna occur again. Well, Shadow Priest doesn't have immunity, but what it does have, and this might change me from having the DK to a Shadow Priest, there's a sit-down debate happening right now as to whether this is a good idea, is they do really good damage when things are spread out all over the place. They have an ability called Psychic Link, which allows them to DPS targets that are like 40 yards away at the same time. That could actually be very, very cool on the last boss. In which case, the Shadow Priest might actually get a look in over a Death Knight. And if that's the case, maybe you want to think about that. But I'm not choosing my main alt based just on fun. I'm choosing it based on what situation will I not play my main character in order to bring in the main alts, considering I need to invest equal times in them. Now remember, I can play as many alts as I want. And I think some people walked away thinking, oh, he didn't choose Feral, so he's never going to play Feral. Absolutely not. It's going to be one of my alts. I'm going to play it whenever I feel like it. I have that fortunate time advantage. Not all of you do, and I appreciate that, which is why we try to give you the best information. But I hope that clears up some of the thought process that goes into how you arrive at your decision. Because my Discord is full of PMs, my email is full of DMs, my Twitter is full of messages, and my Twitch stream every day is full of questions that I can't decide. This is how I decide. I weigh up all the pros and cons, but I always roll back to what is my main focus here? What is the goal I want to achieve? Okay, am I willing to make certain sacrifices to make sure we get that goal and then reap a ton of benefits at the other end so that sacrifice wasn't in vain, such as not being my favorite Covenant, as to not being like the most fun gameplay that I can find? Yeah, I am. And that's for me to decide. That's on me to choose, so I make that choice. Alright guys, so I hope that helps you out a little bit. I hope it explains some of the confusion you guys were seeing, and what you're likely to see in the Shadowlands is, but you said Night Fae was best. Yeah, yeah it is. But it doesn't work with my main, at least for now. They're probably going to buff it into so it does gazillion damage or something stupid. We'll see. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.